Hi Karl, lovely to meet you yesterday and begin working on your game. Just a quick recap on the key points from yesterday's session. Very productive session, changed your ball flight tremendously during the session as well, which is always nice, as well as changing the overall look of your swing. If we just take a look at it initially from down the line and face on across the top line, this is the before sequence, so this is the swing at the start of the session. Pretty good setup position from down the line. Club comes inside a little bit too much, but we'll work on that on subsequent sessions. For now, setting the club nicely. Decent position at the top, a little bit deep perhaps, but again, we'll work on that in subsequent sessions. My main concern is this steepening of the shaft on the way down. You can see there that the shaft is through the right shoulder almost on the way down. And as a result, gets too much outside the hands and above plane coming into the ball. At this point now, the club is already on the target line. Sweet spot's over the target line at this point. Nigh and impossible to hit anything other than pulls and fades from that point on. Swinging quickly to the left with a club face that's releasing over and exiting quite low with the right knee shooting out towards the target line. Whenever we see a right knee shoot out more than it was at address, so let's say your address flex was approximately here, you can see that as we come down, it turns into its address flex, then shoots out in front of it. This has the effect of opening the hips too quickly, opening the shoulders too quickly, and shifting the swing line to the left, which is what we saw when we had you on flight scope. When we look at it from face on, we've got the handle a little bit too far back. Again, conducive to hitting pulls and cuts. Pretty good move going back. Long term, I'd like to see, as we discussed at the end of the session, just let that left knee drift in a touch more. That's not ideally suited to the swing pattern, but it would help you in regards to the way your hips work and allow you to extend a little bit more. From there now, left knee doesn't really get out in front of the left ankle, left leg straightening very quickly to accommodate the right knee moving forward, coming into the ball a little bit outside the line, quite a lot of release. And then as we come through impact now, we go back into flexion, see the right shoulder overtaking the left, coming out of our inclination to the ground, so we gain a lot of height quite quickly and bend forward, so all the spine tilt that we have here, which is our hips moving forward, so you can see the hips well in front of the sternum, is now lost as the upper body tries to get back into flexion, and we get this sort of kinked back look in the follow through. Added to that, rate of closure on the club face a little bit too extreme, and we've got the perfect recipe for hitting a lot of pulls and a lot of cuts. Now, hitting it with a cut is fine if that's what you see when you're at a golf course. I haven't got a problem with that, but when asked to hit a draw at the start of your session, yeah, a nice little double cross, and that's something that we've got to guard against when we're out on a golf course. Ultimately, we want to have the ability to hit both shots and understand how to hit both shots. So what we've done initially is we've asked you to get the ball back just a fraction, about an inch further back in the stance, get the weight a touch further forward, and get the handle forward. So those were the first couple of changes that we asked you to make. And if we look at it from face on at setup, rid of those lines for you. Take you back to the address position. So those are the before. And I'm just going to run this through a little bit further, get to the actual shot. The after. Now this is when you're working on moving your left knee forward, and the handle, albeit a little bit further forward than it was before, is not as far forward as you had it during the bulk of your session. Ideally, we want the handle to be pointing towards the left hip at setup. That's going to encourage the blade to open up fractionally and encourage you to be able to hit out at the ball for longer. So when we look at this down the line footage, bear in mind that your handle location at setup is more what I've showed or illustrated with the red line on the right hand screen. So let's have a little look at these now and compare them before and after. I'll take you to the top. Not a great deal of difference on the way back in these two swings. This one's quite early in your session. We're just trying to punch these balls forward with a different handle location. So the top of the backswing appears just a fraction shorter than what we were seeing at the start of your session. Now it's from here on in where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. Previously, hand coming down, elbow playing the top red line, shaft coming down with it, shaft through the right shoulder. Now, hands get back onto the elbow plane, but you can see how much shallower the shaft is at that point now, splitting the two lines. Whereas here, it's a little bit above plane. As we continue down, you can see the club now getting above plane, club face quite open to the arc at which you're swinging, and the club well in front of the hands. Here, club on a completely different arc and starting to toe down a fraction due to the left wrist being bowed and flat as opposed to the left wrist being a little bit cut on this one. So completely different blade position and shaft alignment coming into impact. As we come through, you can see there now the club getting above plane, club staying on plane, coming from the inside, coming from the outside, swinging left with a blade that's wrapping over, hitting out for longer with a blade that's releasing less. Also added to that, look at the difference in the leg work. No gap between the right and the left knee as we've got here. Just go back to the top. Address knee flex. Round about here. Right knee doesn't get out in front of it quite as much. So we're not coming across the ball. A little bit more linear movement. A little bit squarer shoulder alignment. Shoulder alignment more open. Swinging across. Full release. Hitting out. Different looking follow through position again. Get rid of these lines. What are we starting to see? Left heel popping straight up. Left heel banking in a little bit more. Base of the left bicep parallel to the ground. Left bicep pointing upwards. Sign that the arms have come off the rib cage in an attempt to release the club. Sign that the arms have stayed on the rib cage and turned the corner properly down at the bottom. So that's the change that was made by moving the ball back a fraction, moving the handle forward a fraction, putting just a touch more weight on the left hand side. And the swing thought you had at that point was to push the ball out to the right. When viewed from face on, what we're working on down, second part of the lesson, was this first move from the top. What we see is a left knee that never really gets out in front of the left ankle. So not enough linear movement. Left knee moves forward, but then starts to straighten very quickly, shifting everything to the left with a big release of the club face. What we're seeing here is, and the drill we've given you at this point is to swing to the top of the backswing and feel that you're going to work the left knee forward whilst keeping the left shoulder down. I'm just going to move out the way in a second, let you look at this position here compared to Notice now, right arm's already started to straighten. It's not got into the right side. Here, the angle in the right arm's been maintained for longer due to the linear movement in the downswing. The left knee moving forward has increased the amount of hip slide you get, which in turn has increased the amount of secondary axis tilt that you get at this point during the swing. When we look at that in speed, we've got the handle forward. We're going to try during the downswing now to get this left knee moving forward a little bit more at the start of your downswing. Good comparison here now. Because of the improved hip slide, the right shoulder's lower than the left. Here the shoulders are quite level. Much more secondary axis tilt. Release point. Just remove that one. I've cheated a little bit there. Release point a little bit closer to the golf ball. I'm just going to sync these two up now and run them through. So the hands are much more advanced than they were previously. The club is not releasing as quick. You can see on the top footage the club's getting to the golf ball sooner. Closing it down, losing the loft, bending the swing to the left. Massive improvement in your impact position right there. Shaft leaning forward more, sign that a player's hitting out at it for longer with a blade that's slightly more open. Here now we're looking at the back of the club face. Beg your pardon. Here we're looking at the back of the club face, whereas here the blade's been released less through impact. What we did do then towards the end of your session was we introduced the cane just to the left hand side of your head, a couple of inches to the left, so that we can move into it, but just to stabilize the head position coming through into the finish. Really good extension, and then we just start to drift ahead of that line and go back into flexion. So we want to stabilize that upper axis for a little bit longer, just to emphasize things in regards to the way the body works during the golf swing. Big improvements here though from my money are impact from face on, night and day. And the delivery position from down the line. Top row, classic cut pattern. Bottom row, nice little draw pattern. Great working with you. Can't wait to meet up again and do some further work in February. Good luck. Keep up the good work. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. All the best.